So, good evening, everyone. Does it work? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So, my name is Ananya, and I welcome you to this event. And towards the final talk of this event, data-driven UX, potential and tools. I know I'm the last one standing between you people and the drinks, so I'll try to pick your interest into this topic, and hopefully everyone can learn something out of this tonight and have some key takeaways and can put later into the practice. So before having a deep dive, let's just go through the overview. I'll start with why data matters for UX, particularly. It's a very interesting example with applied data-driven UX in practice. Going briefly to the data ecosystem, understanding what kind of structure of the data it is. And what does it mean in the domain of UX? Connecting to data literacy in UX. Why is it important nowadays for any professionals, particularly UX professionals, data analysts, product owners, and so on? And presenting our results from the survey that we conducted at Ergonomen. To connecting the identifying opportunities in the domain of usage data, because there's a huge amount of raw data out there. And then it's your turn. We have set an example, data-driven UX in practice. It's a very small and sweet and short example, so it would be interesting to have engagement in the audience. And then closing the session with benefits of data-driven UX. So I would like to start with why data matters for UX. Data plays an important role in everyday's life, in our daily life. Whomsoever it may, no matter what kind of professionals you are, it really matters in our everyday life. It shapes our view of the world, influences our decisions on a daily basis. You take so many number of decisions right from you wake up in the morning to go back again to the sleep. It's more than, for sure, 35,000 decisions per day. Those decisions can be good or bad. So we always wonder about why data is so important in our daily life, and especially nowadays in the domain of UX. So I'd like to start with the curious case of $300 million button. Rhymes with the curious case of Benjamin Button. So probably everyone over here might have been in the shoes of a shopper and have experienced online shopping in any one of the e-commerce website. Whether it may be Amazon, whether it could be Digitech, Galaxis, MediaMarkt. You go onto the website, the product you like, you add to the cart. You go through the checkout process, payment, and then you receive the product at your doorstep. It's as easy as simple, right? Although one of the biggest e-commerce giants were struggling with such kind of process. And now I would like to let you know how changing a button generated a revenue, annual revenue of 300 million US dollars. So what we see here is an illustration of a simple customer journey on the e-commerce website. You go to the website, you add the product, you click checkout, go to the registration, you fill in the form, become a customer, and then you enter your payment information with respect to shipping address, and you receive the product. So this was their process, and it's an illustration of their process back in the days, probably 10 years ago now. And this process was as easy as simple. Nobody could have imagined that this process could have a problem. The designers had no idea that the customer journey would have a problem. The form was very simple as possible, with 2 fields, email address, password, and 2 buttons, register and login. But the problem was not the form itself. The form was super simple. The problem was the form where it lived in the customer journey. And it prevented customer purchasing so many orders and had a huge drop-off. And this prevention led to the tune of $300 million per year. So now, the design team, what happens next? Started to analyze user issues, starting to usability test with qualitative results and quantitative analysis with respect to product metrics. And here's what they have found out. They were wrong about the first-time shoppers. They resisted registering onto the website because it prevented them to even have a payment information before they have to register as a customer. Nobody wanted it. And particularly they quoted, "I'm not here into the relationship, I just want to buy something." So they did mind registering. And some of the first-time shoppers couldn't remember if it was their first time. Becoming a frustration as many times they were trying the combination of their email address and password and they failed. So now with the quantitative analysis, they came to know 45% of the customers had multiple registrations. So many requested forgot password link as close to 160,000 people per day. And that's crazy. Which of this, 75% of these people never tried to complete the purchase once requested. And this caused a frustration. And then the design team came to know that it's actually not the customer journey, it's we are preventing the purchases, the orders, with respect to the first-time shoppers. The insight came out of it, that they are not here in the relationship, they don't want to be pestered with the marketing efforts, they don't want to give their data in terms of being skeptical about different campaigns and so on. So what happened next? How does the $300 million fix happen? Just one button. In the registration form, while checking out in the next screen, they just added a button, continue as a guest. With a small text, you do not need to create an account to make purchases on our site. Just simply click continue to proceed to checkout. And the result? It increases 45% of purchases with respect to customer, generate an annual revenue of $300 million. That's the power of data-driven UX applied into the practice. And that's an amazing example of how we can inspire and how we can change our decision-making process in any organization based on evidence. So we ask ourselves, where do organizations struggle? And nowadays, new technologies emerging are highly dependent on the data. For example, to train algorithms or to gain user insights from user behavior. And UX experts are not the only one to rely on data on a daily basis. The touch points and interactions help other product teams, market teams, to make sure they understand and serve their customers very well. So they start to work in cross-functional teams. And what happens after that is that multiple data sources start to convert. And then the role clarification with respect to who is collecting the data, what is happening in the data, starts to hinder a lot. So it is uncommon to work as a usability experts as well as the data specialist in the same team. It's very different depending on organizations to organizations. And in no time, it's a huge lake of data. Big data, as we call it. So let's briefly see what does big data mean for us, especially go through a bit of shorter ecosystem, especially what does it mean for UX design. And let's take a look. It starts with the unstructured data. This is the kind of data that has no inherent structure. It's usually stored at different types of files, like textual files, images, videos, prototype files for UX people. Could be Figma, InDesign, and so on. Then we have semi-structured data, which is textual data files, but has a bit of semi-structure in terms of JSON or XML files. And this files has the potential to transform from unstructured to structured data. And at the end, we have the structured data with respect to a defined model, for example, a database or an Excel file, which has a bit of attributes like name, gender, age. You have a bit of correlation to do. So there's a humongous amount of big data, but what does it mean for UX? And I would like to start with demographics, user research, understanding the personas, unrevealing the user information. Who are the customers? What kind of people are buying the product? And the demographics behind it. Then starts with the usage data. And this is a huge pool of raw data with respect to big data, with respect to small data. It's a huge pool. Everybody's collecting it. Everybody's generating it with respect to Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, events, sessions. Then comes the UX metrics. And UX metrics are generated in UX research process with respect to usability testing, or at the time of when you're creating a product in the journey of quantifying the user experience to improve software and web applications, so in order to you're measuring the user experience. And here are some framework, hard framework, which is from Google, system usability scale, so you can have different metrics like SUS score, and heuristic evaluation with respect to qualitative heuristics from Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics. And then comes the behavioral insight out of it. So we have user interviews, thematic analysis, and survey data. So in general, now you see you start from unstructured data to structuring the data, but in general you start to having the behavioral insight because that's what it matters for us as a UX professional. We transform the unstructured data and turn insight out of it. How do we do it? That's a very interesting question. How to turn data into insights. And we start with data which is unstructured data here from the previous slide, which has mostly raw data with individual facts and figures, signals and measurements. Now let's add a bit of context into it. We will proceed with information. We'll transform the data into information that can be accessible or organized to you, useful to you, can be condensed, calculated, and so on. And now if you add a bit of meaning to it, you have knowledge in terms of a notion, idea, a learning. You want to share it to someone. You want to discuss it. And in the end of the process, we want to have insight. So from data to insight, we have knowledge so far. Let's add a bit of perspective into it. And that's how we get insights, understanding, integration, actionable insights. And that's what we are looking for in the whole UX process, whether it's a qualitative process, quantitative process. We are looking for actionable insights to work upon, improve the user experience of the products, of software applications, web applications, and so on. So that's how we target the big data, work with unstructured data, transform into some bit of structure. There is a usage data out there. And then let's turn them into actionable insights so we have a great analysis in terms of a user experience for products. With actionable insights, we have high value and less decision risk. If we make decisions based on just raw data or information, the decision risk could be higher. So let's move from opinionated decision making to data-driven decision making, evidence-based decision making, where we can have high value in terms of insights and less decision risks. Which brings me to a topic, data literacy in UX. Because every day we are working with data, it plays our roles in everyday life, and it has become increasingly important for any person, data literacy. So what is data literacy? Where do we start? It is the ability to read a data, which can cover with theory or analysis. It's the ability to work with data. We do data collection, data evaluation, and communicating with data. We report, present, understand the context behind it. And at the intersection of all these three circles lies data literacy. Which is very important in terms of understanding of the data sources. It goes in the direction of language literacy. You learn a new language, you're bilingual, multilingual, you have the ability to read the data, write the data, communicate with other people, understand the context and the in-between jokes and the lines. So that goes in the similar direction, that it's very important nowadays we need to provide data literacy. If we don't understand data, if we can't compare and differentiate what we can and what we can't, it's very difficult to communicate with internal and external stakeholders and advocate knowledge, represent data visualizations, and put actions behind it. So we start to make evidence-based decision-making process. And this how it sparked my interest, that how we can do a survey, what about the data literacy. And we did a small round of research in UX and other professionals as very important in the domain of data-driven decision making. So we at Ergonomen conducted a survey with 50 people at LinkedIn. And the objective was to get into the insights, into their experience with data on a daily basis, and assess the value with understanding with data versus interpreting with data visualizations. The survey method was online survey, with the likes of Lime Survey as a tool. And survey participants were differentiated with respect to roles like UX team, UX practitioners, UX analysis, UX researcher, data team, data scientist, data analyst, and so on. But at the same point of time, there is also important for marketing people, marketing team, business owners, sales team, because everyone nowadays is working with data. So that's how it was, the distribution with respect to our sample size. And we got some pretty amazing results and insights. Before showing the results, the survey was distributed in 2 parts, focusing on their experience in analytics. So we asked questions like, how has your experience with analytics been? Because nowadays, no matter what kind of role they appear, or some people doesn't believe in titles that work for, but everybody is aware of the analytics and the tools out there. In marketing, they work with the marketing metrics. In sales, they work with the sales metrics, and so on. Which web analytics tools they use. And that was the first part of the survey, covering the basic questionnaire. The second part of the survey started with how important is the ability to tell the stories with data. So it started to go on a very deeper level with respect to how they are communicating with data, how they are understanding with the data. How is their ability to interpret data visualizations? And we asked them in a way with different visualizations with respect to dashboard, heat maps, complex visualizations of the user journeys, with all the tools available out there. And the survey results, the main insights that we've got is 95% of the respondents agree that storytelling is a very important aspect in their daily life to communicate with data. According to the Data Literacy Project, 76% of the key business decision makers aren't confident in the ability to read, work, or argue with data. And that was a huge barrier if we think about, on a daily basis, we act as a key business decision makers, and if we can't even have the ability to argue and communicate with data, that could create a huge barrier in decision-making process. 56% of the respondents said agree upon analytics is very important for growth, but they cannot utilize as much as they want to. So there are tons and tons of tools out there. They are aware of what is happening with analytics, but they cannot really utilize the potential. So that really brings to the gap in terms of not knowing what to do with the tools, but actually goes more in the domain of interpretation. And 65% of the respondents, we found out, that was the most interesting insight, and thanks to Gianluca together for the survey analysis, it's easier to understand the data represented through common visualizations with the likes of bar charts, table, heat map, versus the interpretation in complex visualizations like user flows, Sankey diagrams, and so on. And with this learning, we came to know that there is a gap with respect to understanding versus interpretation. And I would like to highlight with an example of the last finding. So the visualization here focuses on the most common pathways. We don't need to worry about what text here is. It's just on a high level of the picture. You can see nodes. You can see nodes going from one point to another point. And you can see there are some overlapping here. So it can show, the visualization shows basically in a product where a user travels from which page to another. Now, the interpretation gap lies here in the overlapping pathways. We understand, but how do we interpret the user behavior there? What if I want to zoom in and see how was the experience with that particular user. Two users might have the same customer journey. Doesn't mean that two users had the same user experience on the customer journey. And this is our example from Google Analytics with respect to this event, as Christopher showed in the previous slide. So it's also a Sankey visualization in form of behavior flow from Google Analytics. So you can see the pages, the landing pages, and how many sessions are there. So you can really see the what behind it, the metrics. But what's really interesting here is like, okay, some are going here, but what do I do with this set of information here? It's just a what. Okay, I can maybe push a bit of harsh marketing campaigns or do a bit more of sales to improve this product metrics. But that does really give us information in terms of optimizing the user experience that we really want to give to the users. So again, we do understand, but how do we analyze the individual user's movement? It is optimal to isolate the traffic, especially here, to filter the data by user segments. Similar example showed by Stolovavic from Omniscopy as well. So how can you use this usage data to grab the opportunities? How can we start to identify the opportunities? With UX analysis, you understand how the user experience your website, your product, so you can prioritize your decisions. Ensure the user experience is frictionless and intuitive as much as possible. It starts with collecting and evaluating of data, how your users are experiencing the product. Effective UX analysis will provide you a series of actionable steps to address users' desire and pain points within your product. You can generate actionable insights out of it. And last, your product teams, market teams, cross-functional teams can implement or test these changes to see improvements in conversion rates and other metrics. You start to go in the direction of that red arrow that you saw earlier, continuous improvement. And in the end, you will get two types of data. Quantitative, which is numerical and measurable with respect to metrics, and qualitative, with subjective and user insights. So we start with web analytics with product insights. Omniscopy, as presented earlier in this talk, if we start with Omniscopy or Hotjar, it combines the traditional web analytic tools with product experience insights to connect the dots between what's happening on your website and why, so you can figure out to improve the user experience of your products. With UX analytics, we can exactly know how your customers react and interact. It starts with the user journey, recorded sessions, as you earlier saw, and provided with such kind of flow diagrams. So you really start to connect the dots with what and why. And you analyze to a particular point in the user journey, where was the drop-off? In this example, I'll show you, it's a GIF, it's pretty fast, so I will play twice. But you can really select, filter down the metrics, you can identify the user behavior, you can go on with respect to the previous example where the pain points was here, where we stumble upon the what, how can we know what happens in that particular user session? How can we identify the user behavior and the patterns behind it? So it's a Hotjar example, so the tool lets you create handy visualizations. So the takeaway from this is you can really filter down on each and every user segment. Everybody wants a coffee now. We can quickly find the why behind the behavior patterns. When you notice a pattern in your data, the next step is to investigate further. It's a click map on the right side here. So earlier you saw you can see the session recordings, but you can actually connect to the heat map to see how the users are interacting on your web pages or your product. It's a form of heat map where you can see the click rates to analyze a particular call to actions or other elements on the website. Heat maps. Heat map is an amazing graphical representation in terms of visual data. And the values are depicted with the color. The hot represents the more, and the blue represents the less, basically. And heat maps makes it so easy to visualize complex data and understand it in one glance. See on the left, we have the raw data, but in a structured way. You have element, visibility, interaction points, number of total. So there is a bit of defined model. But if you present this here versus this to your stakeholders, the one on the right is just very easy to grasp, even to see on the high level as an overview, how is the interaction on your web page. You can make actionable insights out of it. Okay, this is a kind of move map. So there's a correlation they say about the move map is most of the times where the users see, their mouse cursor also follows. So you can create more and more insights out of this correlation and optimize your website on a continuous basis. Even if you present such heat map to internal and external stakeholders, for example, it's also a heat map in terms of scroll map, so you see the interaction depth in terms of how users scroll to which elements of the page to certain extent beyond the average fold or not, and so on. And it's very clear, stratified. If you present this, nobody's going to argue it. Root cause analysis. It focuses on session recordings as a part of qualitative analysis. And these are the renderings of real actions taken by visitors. As they browse website, let's take here's an example basically, similar to Omniscopy, how Slovak showed us. This is respect to Hotjar. You can skip inactivities, you can highlight, you can tags, it's a UX UI issue, confusion, frustration, success, conversion, and so on. You can carry out the actions, you can filter what elements of your website you want to really focus on. In general, you get a great overview of the big picture, what's happening with respect to the user's movement. And then we start to receiving evidence based on quantitative and qualitative aspect of the artifacts. So it's very important to review from experts. We start to find solutions to the problems. This is qualitative data now. We started with the user research. It was quantitative analysis with product insights, heat maps, session recordings, root cause analysis. But it's really important to go through an expert's perspective. Verbal or written user insights tell you why customers behave in a certain way. And this is very qualitative in terms of user interviews or usability testing. And you kind of go in a direction of triangulation of data. And that's where your decision process can be improved. Continuous improvement process. We start with identifying user issues, the most common issues among your data points. We start to organize this UX data around the issues which are encountered while performing the certain task. We start to find the recurring issues in this UX data. We start to analyze the recording, start to find the patterns. With the power of omniscopy, such kind of tool, we can bring so much easy in terms of processing the usage data and generating insights. After that, we can start to prioritize fixes. We can decide based on UX metrics which features we want to prioritize or which issues we want to prioritize. Then we share findings, basically, in cross-functional teams. So we can compile a report out of it, and cross-functional teams can work together to optimize those fixes. And then it's really testing. With continuous testing comes continuous improvement. And all in all, a good design always takes a continuous process, iteration. As we say, fail fast, fail forward. And now I will open, it's your turn, with an example. I would like to show you an example basically with respect to the form optimization. It's from Task World. It's a project management solution that relies on its sign-up page with few form fields and then focus on converting the customers with respect to this sign-up button to provide a project management solution. This is just a wireframe that I created because they did a heat map analysis out of it. So the next is, I will show the heat map analysis, but it's very basic with 5 fields: first name, last name, email address, password, select time zone, sign up, and there's a link. If they have an account, you can sign in. So now we'll show the heat map and ask the audience, can anyone identify 3 issues from this heat map analysis? Yes?
One would be the sign-ins buried at the bottom.
It's here. Yes, that's a great one. Yes?
Nobody cares about the time zone settings at all.
Exactly.
Completely ignored.
Exactly. It's wonderful.
Confusing, you know. The amount of first clicks does not correspond to the sign-ups, you know. That's important.
Amazing. And the last one. 2 are correct. The third one is a bit general. So first is the underutilized call to action. Their focus was sign up, but you see a large number of the people wanted to sign in. And that's an underutilized call to action. It prevented the customers to drop off. Second was the field drop. With all the fields, all the customers came to know it's so many number of fields just for one sign up. And all the fields were mandatory fields. So that created a major drop off. And then comes the select time zone as also a part of the mandatory field process. And most of the times it got bypassed, as you can see from the heat map. So results, in just 5 minutes, they started to fix the issues with just one form field, which is email address, and a sign-up button. And the conversion rate increased by 40%, and the drop-off reduced by 4.5%. So that's amazing, inspiring example how you can put data-driven UX into practice and achieve amazing results. And it also conveys that interpreting data with such kind of easy visualizations, it just makes communication easier. Now we are towards the end. We start with the benefits. We start with identifying UX issues. We can create experiences based on how users actually use their website or app, or how do you think they should do it? GDPR compliance. We are Omniscopy and BSD providing the GDPR and compliance with respect to security. It anonymizes the sensitive data. That's very important. Everybody's skeptical about it. And the local data in the browser, and provide the option to host even locally. We get to visualize data, customer journey, with easy visualizations. If we provide right representations of the data, it makes the communication with internal and external stakeholders much easier and helps us to be more data-driven or evidence-driven, which could create effective business goals. That could lead in the increase in the conversion rate, because we are focused about metric-driven. We are focused about the goals of the business to achieve and target towards it. It increases the team collaboration and cooperation. We start to work with cross-functional teams working together to optimize UX fixes. You start to have based decisions, not on opinions. And that's the biggest benefit of data-driven UX. We start to get inspired and discover many more opportunities. It's not only limited to e-commerce or form optimization. You can apply in banking, finance, whatever industry it may. It just reveals more potential when you start to apply. You start to get more insights, and you can do more and more research out of it. And continuous improvement. As I said earlier, and we put earlier, have a focus on continuous improvement with respect to a good design takes time and needs iteration and iteration. But if we are focused about the correct process and methodology, we believe we'll reach there and make the process much efficient and better with respect to data-driven UX. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to present about data-driven UX and its benefit. I hope everyone's tonight enjoying the event so far and learning some key takeaways. And let's start to have some inspiration and make some data-driven decisions.
Thank you very much. Ananya, can you just go one back, please? Any questions to Ananya?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in the beginning you mentioned the 300 million button dilemma or whatever. Was that Amazon? Am I right about that?
Yes, it was Amazon. Yeah.
Why 300 million again?
Why? They increased the annual revenue of 300 million in the first year. Yeah. Yeah.
Did they have proof that it was because of the button, or because they just grew the business? Or it's really measurable for that button?
Yes, just because of that button. Yeah. So what they did, try to go away, basically the previous customer journey was registration and login. And when you think upon it, why you want to prohibit users to buy products at your site to make customer even before having a paywall, you know? So back then, like this was I think 2009 or 2010 times when Amazon had such kind of implementation. So for them it was correct, nothing was wrong, but they didn't have the insight or the behavior of the user that nobody wanted to register. They just wanted to have a product and get delivered at their doorstep. So with respect to usability testing and qualitative insights and quantitative analysis from their product metrics, they start to uncover more insights, and they really put into the practice. Just changing one button, continue as a guest, revealed their site and annual revenue of $300 million. That's crazy.
This is, the well-known challenge that you should build and then you project the process to ensure that
minimum required information is captured from the customer, because that's exactly what creates attention, and that's why customers don't want to sign up. So if you are in the process of onboarding them, or like in the online acquisition, so it's just like to hunt for somebody, man, you have to reduce just to simplify. So it's never-ending story, and then discussion between the marketing team, the products. Then they want to have the maximum of the data, but as you see, it's just like a natural value. So it's proved. You can just compare the amount of transactions and then the conversion rate done. It will be proved. It was just like a question of grew up. I mean, the business grew up, or by comparing the same amount of transactions, seeing what was the conversion rate, for example. This is the point.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Ananya. Just
Thank
take
you very
this
much
one
for the questions.
for the